Hi.
What's
What's up,
happening, player?
Dustin?
How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm sitting, I'm hanging out in my basement. I got my red Savoy shirt on. Look at that beauty. Of course, Red Savoy bringing you KFAN draft coverage on a Wednesday night from our respective abodes. Key thing here, pizza lovers. I'm one of them. You can make it happy hour during draft season. You use the code DRAFT when you order a large pizza, when you go to savoypizza.com, and you get a free appetizer. And our appetizer might be draft conversation, might be a mock draft in the morning on the Power Trip Saucy. And our version of an NFL or Vikings loving large pizza is going to take place tomorrow. We've been making it up as we can go for as long as we can remember. But now, 24 hours, I believe, from this moment, the bell's going to sound down in KC, Saucy, and the draft is going to commence. You would prefer watching the draft to basically anything in life? How pumped are you, brother?
I can't wait, man. It's my favorite thing on the planet, except for my wife. But I absolutely love every second of it. We've given my bio on it. I fell in love with it in 1998 when the Vikings somehow found their way to Randy Moss, and I realized just the uncertainty of it. It's the best part of Madden, going to the offseason. The offseason is just the best. Obviously, you and I watching Vox do what he does on a Sunday is elite, but this is I love every second of the NFL draft. And there's something about this year, Nordo, and the intrigue of like no one really knows. Like you can go to your DraftKings websites, you can go to all that, you can do all the research you kind of want and look into, the only sure thing we have is Carolina's going to go with a quarterback. Other than that, Nordo, if I had to be right and get two of the top 10 right, I don't know if I could do it because you go down the list with Houston, we have no idea. The Arizona Cardinals, I think, are going to try everything they possibly can to move out of that pick because the Paris Johnson, the left tackle from Ohio State, will be there at 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12. You don't need to take him at 3. I think the Colts are the only other team that needs a quarterback. Seattle, Detroit, Vegas, Atlanta, Chicago, and Philly probably don't need a quarterback, but you never know. Like nobody really knows what's going on with the intrigue in the top 10, and I think it's great. We've had drafts before where we know the top 3 picks, and it's normally just going to be quarterbacks, and you roll from there. Every draft always has a start to it, and it's the second pick in this draft.
Yeah, I think, and in some ways, maybe the same thing happened a year ago. A lot of people thought Aiden Hutchinson was the best player in the draft. Trayvon Walker, I believe, goes first. Part of that incredible Georgia defense to the Jaguars, and Aiden's now a member of Detroit. But it is one of those things where there is no consensus. I think in a lot of ways, the quality of these players is even questioned. And as we get into quarterbacks, as we've talked with the Vikings at pick 23, it feels like there's roughly 20 different cornerbacks that could be rated in the first round with the way we've been talking about. Look at getting the draft and getting into specifically the meat of it. You mentioned a tackle for Arizona. I'm thinking defensive player, and that's kind of the interesting part of that. Seattle is a potentially sneaky quarterback spot. A lot of people thinking about what the Falcons apparently have been reported. They're trying to move back. Like there's so much movement. There's so much subterfuge, so much more than we've seen, it feels like, in recent years.
And it leads to, when you look at these teams, and we can get into, obviously, I think the meat and potatoes, speaking of that, we're going to get into, is what the Vikings are going to do at 23 if that's where they go. I have a whole idea and a whole plan of what I think they're going to do, but like you go to Houston, and the comeback to Houston that I keep hearing about what Houston might do is they are a team that has every single need. I couldn't name a guy on their offensive line. Davis Mills and Case Keenum are their quarterbacks. Other than Stingley Jr., who they took last year, is one of the only guys I could name on their defense. I couldn't name any playmakers they have because I'm pretty sure they traded Brandon Cooks, so they don't have him anymore. They just don't have anything. So if you look at a team like Houston, who DeMeco Ryans is their head coach, has a 6-year contract, DeMeco Ryans is not going anywhere for at least 4 to 5 years. He will have every opportunity. He's a Texans. He's a legend for the Houston Texans, and they don't have a lot of them. So I think he's laid out his plan and is going to say, listen, I don't want to, we're not going to win the Super Bowl, but we are probably going to be in, behind closed doors. Obviously, they're not selling this to the ticketing community. We are going to be up in this position again. And there are 2 stud quarterbacks next year. Why don't we take Will Anderson or Tyree Wilson at the second pick, or Jalen Carter, get the best defensive player in this draft, go back to 12, and then just build up or take the first offensive lineman. And then I think they have 6 or 7 picks in the top 100. You could find somebody, or you just go, we're going to load up. This is not a 1-year fix. The Houston Texans are not going to be fixed in 1 year. And the same thing can be said for the Arizona Cardinals. So that's where I think we will get some of these quarterbacks. Once the Colts pick, I think that's where you get some of these quarterbacks that may be in the 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 range.
We were talking about it 9 to noon today. There's a prop that says over or under 4.5 quarterbacks being taken in the first round. And the Vikings are kind of part of that conversation, because after you get to 23, you look after that, and there aren't any teams that are looking for a QB. So that to trade up into the first round and grab a guy late tomorrow night, but would you go over or under the 4.5 number of QBs that are selected tomorrow evening?
Well, I would go the over, because I bet the over with both Lieber and I think Hockey, but I think I have money on the over. And I think the over at 4.5, I think on Monday was like plus 200, and now it's minus 205, 203. So I think that's where the Hendon Hookers of the world come in, and he will be a guy that is at 28, 29, 30, 31, where Philly, New Orleans, the Bengals, or Kansas City moves out and lets a team come up like we always see at the end of the draft and get their guy that they want. Or that's a guy where Houston goes, we're going to take 2 studs, and then we have pick 33. We'll flip that with Kansas City at 31, and that's where we'll get our Hendon Hooker, something like that. Houston's the kind of team that can end up with 3 players in the first 31 of this round. But I would definitely take the over. You?
Now, as far as the Minnesota Vikings go, I've been sitting kind of on the under. 4 seems like the right number, but then the more that I think about it, I still think about somebody coming into the draft, leveraging picks to jump into the mid-high 20s and probably grabbing a 5th guy. So if I'm placing money on it, I'd probably take the over as well. But if you look at, where guys like Hendon Hooker and some of these, outside, again, the top 4 that I'm looking at, you see these guys start to really, they start to land, I would say, really the Vikings in the fact that there's been such a connection to QB. So it's been really popular in mock drafts to put Hooker at 23. But in a lot of cases, you're seeing him go day 2. And so, again, these are mock drafts. This is not based in reality. Some of the conversations we're having here are not based in reality. But I think 4 feels like the right number in this first round. But somebody's going to make me look stupid tomorrow. I would bet on it. But as far as the Vikings are concerned, again, being linked, whether it's Hendon Hooker because it's convenient in a mock draft to place somebody at pick 23, or news coming out. There was that article from the Draft Network. You were mentioning the Houston Texans, Minnesota leveraging maybe the next couple of years of draft equity to get up and get their guy. Ben Gessling. This is becoming very popular, Saucy. The idea that the Vikings are going to move up. Ben Gessling, the Star Tribune, his 7-round mock based on where the Vikings are selecting. He had them moving up into that Titans spot, which is actually, they're kind of a quarterback needy team. So it's an interesting thought there. And selecting an Anthony Richardson. So in the vein of what we think will happen versus what we want to happen, or just for the sake of having fun on the radio and loving our favorite team and being rubes, what would be just super awesome to talk about? Where are you at with this moving up for a QB thing?
I'm all for it. I'm sticking with my guy, Ben Lieber, who about a week ago on the Power Trip Morning Show, when he was asked about it by Corey and Hockey, he said, you know what, I'm going to stick to my bit. And his bit was they're going to stay at 23 and take the best defensive player available. My bit is after the whole thing, all the bit that Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell did a couple weeks ago, where they spoke to the media and they brought up multiple times how many draft picks the Minnesota Vikings had last year, and that number was 10. And they said that number multiple times, and they mentioned everyone by name. Caleb Evans, all the guys that they got. Lewis Cine, who had the horrible injury, the other, Andrew Booth, all the guys that they got in last year's draft, and how they talked about how those guys can make an impact. And they kept talking about the quantity of last year's draft. And then we get to the offseason, and the quarterback isn't signed to an extension. He isn't signed after the story came out when Gessling and Andrew Kramer did the podcast about how they were told that Kirk's camp came to them with a deal that was less or equal to what Daniel Jones got from the Giants. They said no. So I think the thesis statement of the offseason for the Vikings is stick to your bit. And with all that, and of course they can go back to him, but Kirk could easily go, no, I'm going to ball out this year and I'm going to get a deal from somebody, maybe a Houston who missed on their quarterback, somebody who needs a quarterback in 2024. I'm going to just do that. It's no tough feelings. It's a business. I get it. So my whole thing is, I think their best plan of attack is to hope that Anthony Richardson, a CJ Stroud, or a Will Levis somehow get to 8, 9, 10, or 11, or 12, and the Minnesota Vikings will trade 23-87 next year's first-round pick, or whatever player. Daniil Hunter is obviously a valuable piece that they can move, but whatever it is, I just think this organization needs to make a move for a quarterback, and if they have found their guy and it's in this draft and it might be expensive, I think it's it. Because people say, well, what if he's a bust? Well, so what? Nordo, you and I have been Vikings fans forever. So what? What happens? Okay, he's a bust. We have 5 quarterbacks in 5 different years, something we've dealt with our whole lives. They've never swung Culpepper got hurt. I get that. But they rarely swing high with something Kansas City did. You said it when you and I talked before this. Kansas City was winning divisional championships. They swung for a guy 27 all the way up to 10. Not that Patrick Mahomes is in this draft, but they did it. Does it work all the time? No. But Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. He's won 1 playoff game. Case Keenum has won 1 playoff game. Kirk Cousins has done everything he can for this team. Yes, the defense was bad, but they need to do something. And I think swinging for a quarterback in this year's first round is what they need to do. You've got to find somebody. It's a perfect landing spot. Kirk Cousins is going to be the starting quarterback for this team next year. Whoever they draft does not need to play. You have a guy in KOC who was a drafted quarterback who knows the position, who knows how to get you set for all the other things other than football. It's a perfect landing spot for a quarterback. And 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, or 13, it'd be a great spot to go to if it all, and I know it's a lot, but if it costs you $23.87 in next year's first, you do it, because the easiest way to load up on talent is to buy it in free agency when you have money, because you have a young quarterback on your roster. They got nothing to lose, because everything that they've done in the past, we've had, think of all the quarterbacks we've had, McNabb, all those guys that we've had, just filling Favre, Tavares Jackson, Gus Farad. It can't get any worse. We've been to the bottom of the barrel when it comes to quarterbacks. It can't get any worse. Why not try something new? I would trade up from 23 to get Anthony Richardson or Will Levis. That's what I would do.
In some ways, and it's weird, I don't know why 9 to noon we haven't talked more about this, but in some ways you could look at it as a tell. Because speaking of Ben Gessling, I think it was he and Andrew Kramer with the Strib. They did a podcast, and it's been reported on that Kirk's camp came to the table. They're like, here's a deal. And you know what, man, we want to stay here so badly that we're going to take a little discount. We're going to take a little bit off the top because we love it here in Minnesota. I would like to retire here as a Viking. They said, no, thanks. They said no thanks. So that this isn't when we're, and so we got to remember that when we're talking, and discussing the idea of, maybe there is an extension on the horizon. There's certainly still time that a deal can be consummated. And so two sides can come together and really, frankly, if you're Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and you're KOC and company, maybe what happens this weekend could actually determine those later conversations with Kirk. If what you're talking about comes to pass, then those conversations might stop. If it's a complete disaster, there's a whiff, we'll hear the classic, we tried to move up. Man, you wouldn't believe we were making all those calls, Saucy. We were making calls. Just didn't have enough in the chamber to offer. Then those talks maybe can change and resume, and Kirk will get some sort of extension. I'm in favor of the swing, but I'm trying to think about it, not just being excited about the idea of taking a chance and taking on a QB. The idea is, what does KOC want as a head coach? So he comes in, he gets to fulfill his dreams as a head coach. You mentioned he's a quarterback, and you mentioned so that's his position of strength. And he comes in here, and I look at Minnesota specifically. If we look back at all the new coaches a year ago, Minnesota in a lot of ways was really the softest landing, right? Well, the defense is a mess, but softest landing from the standpoint that you had Kirk, you got Dalvin Cook, you have Justin Jefferson. Like, those are really sweet pieces for an offensive-minded head coach to step into. I think you could say the same about Mike McDaniel going out there getting Tyreek and how he constructed things in Miami. But a soft landing is Kirk Cousins the guy that he believes can truly improve? Can you truly improve at 35 years old? Is he suddenly going to understand and become more aware in the pocket and avoid hits? Is he going to be a runner at times? The intuitive or instinctual nature of scrambling, all of those things. How much better is he going to be? He throws absolute dimes when he's protected, when everything is going perfect around him. What happens when it breaks down? We've now seen 5 seasons of it. Things generally don't go well. And so the to this with offensive line, he took the most sacks in the NFL last year. He was hit the most times in the NFL last year. All of those things are true. But is there a guy in this draft that has a ceiling that's higher than Kirk Cousins? And so, that's the question. If they have identified one of those guys, if it's a Will Levis, if it's an Anthony Richardson, then I want to see them take that swing. That's super exciting. And as you mentioned, Sauce, he's won one playoff game. It's a team game. Again, protection and other elements of this offense have to improve around him. The head coach has to get better at play calling as well. And so all of those are really apt and reasonable talkers as part of this. But in the end, there's a ceiling. We know what Kirk is going to be. Kirk is not going to shock us. And he was good in the clutch last year. He was good in the clutch in 2021. Again, that's the toughest part of this conversation, is that Kirk is not a bad QB. We are not shedding dead weight here. We are shedding maybe a top 3-4 QB in the conference. That's how muddy the NFC is right now. But teams that are winning the Super Bowl, Joe Burrow didn't win one, but he transformed a franchise. Josh Allen has transformed a franchise. KC has gone to 5 consecutive AFC title games, gone to 3 Super Bowls, and they've won 2 of them when they made a decision. Hey, we're not bad. We're a 9-10 win team in KC, but I think we can be better in this spot. They get Patrick Mahomes, and the rest is history. So taking shots, and again, the last 20 or so years trying to use, who's winning Super Bowls. Tom Brady has accounted for so many of them, kind of, that's the wrench in the mix here. But in the end, teams that are finding their way through extended periods of mediocrity, they're turning things around. It starts in one spot. So if you believe that Anthony Richardson at 20 years old and is that he can elevate you athletically, and he can make enough throws to find TJ Hawkinson in the seam, and he can make those crossers connect with JJ. If you believe that, then you got to go get him. And that's what's kind of fun. And so but you're not going to get him at pick 23. So with a team that has a dearth of talent defensively right now. The starting cornerback position looks a little bit frightening. When you look at those things, you know that you're, in some ways, you are sacrificing a lot, Saucy, by taking a quarterback in this. It is fully a future investment focus. And I can't speak for all Vikings fans, but you connect with a lot of them. We both do via social and et cetera. I think Vikings fans are ready for that future investment. Do you?
I do. And I think when it comes to the draft that will be tomorrow, 24 hours from now, the first pick will probably be done, and Bryce Young will get the Panthers jersey, and they'll move on to the second pick and all that. I think that the fans are, I think, as you just said, Nordo, like Kirk Cousins is fine. He's good. He was great a lot last year, but like they lost to the Giants at home in the playoffs against a not very good Giants team where you and I did bunch of pre-games, Nordo, before that game, and we were like, I think the Giants beat the Texans, and like they beat bad teams. They aren't a good team. They just aren't. Yeah. And we did all that, and they lost. And the last throw of the game by Kirk is, a lot of it's on the offensive line, but like there's just some, like there's like that minutia of like, this is the like it's ride or die here, and that's the last play that it went, and most of it was maybe the play calling, but it left like a sour taste in, I think, a lot of the fans' mouths. Here's the other thing, though. Obviously, they know way more about it than I do. They know way more about it than all of us. If they sit at 23 and let's say they take your guy, Kalijah Cansey, who I've got a great scouting report on from a friend of mine who was at the Combine. Fine, cool. But if we get tomorrow and at pick 23, they sit and maybe Anthony Richardson was available at 15 and they never made the move, right? Whatever it is. And they take like Emmanuel Forbes. No offense to Emmanuel Forbes, but the comeback Corey Cove always has about taking the fifth quarterback when the Hendon Hooker rumor started, we're taking the fifth quarterback. We're taking like the sixth cornerback at that point. Like, I just think that this franchise is, like we've seen, this is going to be a non-draft rant, but like, look at the Wolves, look at the Wild. It's just mediocrity. Barrero brilliantly started his show today basically saying it's the same thing over and over and over again. So you take Emmanuel Forbes at 23, you take some tight end at 87, you finagle your way around and picks whatever you got in the fourth, fifth round. You come out of the draft with 5 new players, 2 of them start. We're 10-6 again, or 10-7. We make the playoffs as a wild card. We lose in the first round. This city needs to do something. This city needs to make a move that will get this state excited. This state is coming off the Gopher hockey team favorited losing in the championship game. The Wolves should have lost in 4 games. They lost the 1 game because Denver just got tired. We just saw the hockey team get killed 4-0 in the playoffs. The superstar that the Wild have done nothing in the playoffs. This city and state is ready for a superstar to step up. The best way to get it is to find your quarterback, get a little excitement into this state, and do something that normally this state doesn't do, except, as you like to say, eat hot dish and think ketchup is too spicy. Everything in the state is just okay. Something, they need to make a move where the fan base goes, yes. Could Emmanuel Forbes be the best corner in the league in 5 years? Maybe. But tomorrow night at the draft party that all you guys are at, it gets to pick 23 and they move back into the second round. Like, I know it's probably the better thing for the future, but tomorrow needs to be exciting. And the best way to make it exciting is finding that guy that you love, who you and I both know, Nordo. They've spent a ton of extra time scouting these quarterbacks. It's time to do something. And if 3 years from now, Anthony Richardson or Will Levis are like awful and out of the league, yeah, it backfired. But at least you tried. At least you tried. You can't hit home run if you don't swing. Sitting on the bench and taking, the same bland players we always take. We're going to take a cornerback. We're going to take a defensive tackle. We're going to move back in the second round or the third round to get 2 third-round picks. Do something exciting, and it could all start tomorrow. I think you froze. I think I bored you to death. Well, Nordo's frozen. We can keep going then, I guess. I don't know. You look at the way that the draft is going to work out, and I think there is a high possibility that a quarterback could be there at 10, 11, 12. You'd have to maybe get in front of Tennessee at 11. If Houston doesn't take one at 2, they probably might take one at 12. Green Bay has no need for a quarterback. The Patriots are a team, you never know what they're going to do. I don't think they'd take one. So I think the team to get up in front of, if a quarterback is your guy, I think you got to get to pick 10, and you got to trade with the Eagles, who I think would gladly take another first-round pick for next year, move back to 23. And I think they could still get a wide receiver or an offensive lineman that they need, because as everybody says when it comes, hang on. The Eagles like taking players in the trenches. So I think the 10th pick is where you need to go. Now, if you sit at 23 and Bijan Robinson is there, I think taking a running back at that pick, PA has mentioned the Alabama running back who is very good. That's another option. But I just think for the sake of this state and the sake of the state of this franchise, I think you need to take a quarterback. And when you look around the league and you follow mock drafts, like I know a lot of you that are watching do, and you follow just kind of the trends of what is the NFL draft, and you see some of these high-end talented guys who do this for a living and aren't looking for clicks on a website that has 600 followers. But you have people like Ben Gessling. You have people like, I think it's Chad Reuter, who writes for the NFL Network. He's a guy that has mocked the Vikings to trading up to the 10th pick and taking Anthony Richardson. Ben Gessling in the draft, or in his mock draft for the Star Tribune that's out today, he has the Vikings trading up to pick 11. So when you have people like that who know what they're doing and aren't just doing this to get people excited and get people to click on their website, NFL.com doesn't need help getting clicks on their website. Somebody is talking about something. Something has to be up that people who know more about the team and the beat writers of the team are suggesting that this is what they might do is a very good clue that they are most likely looking to trade up for a quarterback. Now, wide receiver at 23, fine, but like you need another guy after Adam Thielen left. The corner, like I said, you're going to get the 5th or 6th corner at pick 23. Defensive tackle Kalijah Kancey is a stud out of Pittsburgh. When you look at pick 23, it gets you in a tough spot because of all the wins you had last year. You just eventually have to look at it and go, okay, we are too good of an NFL team right now on paper. The Minnesota Vikings are too good on paper that they are not going to be in the top 5 next year unless there is a catastrophic injury to Kirk Cousins. They most likely aren't going to be in the top 5. So you probably say to yourself, okay, we can maybe win the division against Detroit. Detroit's still Detroit. We know how that works. Green Bay has a brand new quarterback, and the Packers have a brand new quarterback, and the Bears just had the number 1 pick and traded out. They have a ton of holes. So you probably still win the division and get in the playoffs. So you might be in the same position again, right? You're not going to be anywhere near the top of the first round this year or next year, excuse me. Perfect scenario would be to find your guy, pick 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12, go up and get him, give up the 87th overall pick, give up this year's first at 23 and next year's first. You have the bid on Friday, PA and Charger at Buffalo Wild Wings. Think of how amped Buffalo Wild Wings would be if Anthony Richardson rolled in and PA and Charge interviewed him live at Buffalo Wild Wings at the Friday Football Feast. It would be incredible. It's absolutely incredible how fun that would be. But we all know how this is going to go. They're going to take somebody at 23 that none of us have heard of. Let's go down. I actually did this. I'll show it to you here. I put together my top 30 players, and I know Zach's got a bunch of B-roll. I'm going to give you the name, Zach. You just play it. Here's my number 1 guy on the list if I had the first overall pick and I didn't need a quarterback. It's Will Anderson, the defensive end out of Alabama. I think he's the best overall player in this draft. I think he's the closest thing to a sure thing. Nordo,
Hey,
what's up, brother?
I don't know what the hell's going on. I apologize to everybody. I apologize to Red Savoy. Somehow doing this on my phone is better than doing it to a hardwired computer. So I got issues that I will attend to at a later time. But hammer out these players. Let's hear it, brother.
Will Anderson, I just went over. These are we'll go through I wrote top 30 players. We'll just go through my top 10, and you just give me your quick thoughts. I think Will Anderson is the best player in the draft. I just think he's the closest thing to a sure thing. Jalen Carter, who is an absolute monster. As I've said, if you were guaranteed full effort, I think he'd be the number one pick in about any draft in the last 15 years. He's that good. He's just a monster on the football field. And I just don't think you're going to get guaranteed full effort. Meatsauce, he's got a little baggage, but as Ben Lieber has pointed out, he also paid for a couple of guys that weren't on scholarship that, didn't have the meal pass at Georgia. He helped him out with that. Just, I think some of the baggage, because some of the stuff that he did sells better than telling all the good things he's done. I think those two are my top two guys.
Well, first of all, I love Will Anderson, and it was kind of, you noticed, and maybe you talked about this on the power trip, that Tyree Wilson, the cat from Texas Tech, a lot of bettors are getting heavy on him a day in front of the draft, and he's kind of the favorite to be DeMeco Ryans' first draft pick with the Houston Texans. Will Anderson's the best he's the best defender in this class, maybe the best non-quarterback in this draft. And so I absolutely love him. Now, this Jalen Carter thing, it sucks because he was involved in something that led to someone's death. Now, he was speeding. It was irresponsible. How he handled it apparently afterwards, maybe lacking some culpability and responsibility for the entire thing. He wasn't drinking and driving. He wasn't drugging. You don't hear, at least I haven't heard, stories of him being abusive or aggressive to people. He was part of a bad mistake. And the sad part about it, it led to someone's death. But as a player on the field, eliminating all those other things, I actually I love him. And what scares me about Jalen Carter is that the Lions, when you get to where they're at, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe he goes to Seattle, a pick before, but with this Detroit Lions operation that they're building, I think they already have the best offensive line in the division. And with their 2 first-round picks, they could suddenly have the best defensive line in the division as well. And with where we're at as Vikings fans, and you look and we love Christian Darrisaw and what he could be. We love Brian O'Neill, and for the most part, save for this last season, we love what he has been. And Ezra Cleveland, nobody talks about him, good or bad, so maybe we're cool there. But Garrett Bradbury and Mr. Ingram, that is where a guy like Jalen Carter can feast. Oh. And yeah, he's fantastic, man. So it's funny about this draft where when we're talking about the QBs and somebody's going to leverage a ton of draft picks to get up there and grab one of them. But these are franchise building defensive players, and Jalen Carter has the potential. And you mentioned maybe there's an effort issue, and so teams are going to have to investigate that. But when you think about the Chris Jones, you think about the Vikings getting smoked twice by Dexter Lawrence. How you can immediately make a defense better, and that is through pass rush on the interior where quarterbacks hate it the most. It affects their ability to step up. It makes everything worse. And then you get a couple of DNs playing contain on the outside, and that QB's got nowhere to go, and he's in a hell of a lot of trouble. So Jalen Carter is potentially that type of guy that can be a franchise changer on defense. And the Vikings pick nowhere close to where Jalen's going to go tomorrow night.
Let me lay this scenario out for you, all right? First pick is going to be Bryce Young. The second pick, let's say Houston takes Tyree Wilson, right?
Yeah.
Arizona Cardinals stay there and take an offensive lineman, Paris Johnson, the left tackle out of Ohio State. The Colts take Will Levis. The Seahawks take Jalen Carter. Okay. The Detroit Lions take Will Anderson, and then at 18, they come back and take Kalijah Kancey. Think of that. Just that defensive line alone, it would be unbelievable. Or think if they went Jalen Carter at 6 and Kalijah Kancey at 18. Think of that interior 3 technique and nose tackle they would have. Think of that defensive line the Detroit Lions would have. They'd have 100,000 sacks with that defensive line.
No, I don't want to think about it because that'd be awful. That would be terrible. Yeah. You know how much fun it is to make jokes about Detroit Lions fans? You know how fun it is when you picture people with bags over their heads, people showing up at Ford Field and just knowing that their favorite team is going to lose. They've already been a problem for us in really the last handful of years, ever since US Bank Stadium opened. And I think it was Golden Tate in overtime that spoiled things. We got Matt Prater, the Swartzen lookalike, hitting from 59, those sorts of things happening. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, front side of the end zone. That's an absolute disaster. And then we lost straight up a year ago there as well. So they're on the come. The coach is kind of cool. The defense is getting better. I think they still need linebackers. But Goff, in the quarterback conversation of things, I think he's got 1 year left. I'd have to look it up. Would be cool if my internet worked and my actual freaking desktop. But at any rate, Goff's not bad. Goff can sling it around, and they're finding ways to run the ball effectively. And I just they should be favored to win the division, and I think they are. And it's so weird to think that you're intimidated and or scared of the Lions in the same sense when we should all be celebrating that Rodgers is out of the division. It's very weird. And if they were to get Jalen Carter, I would assume, just from my standpoint, I think they would go with a pass rusher, an edge rusher, and then one of those 2 D tackles. That's how I look at it. But either way, I mean, the line gets much better, more fearsome, and we're in for a hell of a ride in 2023 and beyond.
What are your thoughts on the Vikings at 23, moving up, moving back? What's your take on it?
Yeah, my take is, and I love the way you laid it out. And before things got wonky technically, I wanted to jump back in and I love the idea of Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell taking a shot, just putting their stamp on things. Kind of the idea of Kevin O'Connell, this is his first, and it could be his last coaching opportunity. So, what does he know? What does he love? He loves that QB spot. The concept of a coach being able to tutor, to bring up, to develop, and bring a passer into the fold as potentially one of the future greats. And this would be that trademark, that potential moment if they love one of these guys. All of this is predicated, by the way, on the idea that they love some of these guys more than we just love the idea of them loving those guys. Because for all we know, because there's going to be a team, maybe it's not the Vikings. There's going to be a team that takes a QB tomorrow, that takes a QB because they know they can't get in on Caleb Williams a year from now. So they would even concede. They would say, man, this Caleb Williams cat, he's better than all these guys.
All of them, yeah.
But our team is not ever bad enough to get there.
Correct.
And so you're going to go in on a guy this year, and maybe he's a lower quality or a lower ceiling, to be sure, but at least you had a shot at him. So there's going to be a team, I think, that does that tomorrow night. And maybe outsiders would view the Vikings as one of those teams. But that is the key, is that we are never bad enough to pick Caleb Williams. We are never good enough to do Radio Row at a Super Bowl venue and watch our team vie for a Lombardi trophy. And so you can look at needs. You can look at 23. And again, we can talk about the 50 cornerbacks that we've talked about for 3 months. You mentioned Kalijah Kancey. He would be my favorite player if they stuck at 23 and picked a guy. He's awesome. Wide receiver, a number 2 next to JJ. And we got time to kind of talk about any of those angles and maybe the ramifications of it. I want them to take a shot. I want them to find the guy that's next up after Kirk. And I love the idea, and I'm ready, man. I mean, I don't want this team to lose 13 games. Never. I want them to win every game.
Same.
But to get the way this team has been constructed for the last 20 years, you are actually going to have to get worse to get better in the spot that we're in. Now, worse doesn't mean losing 13 games. We could draft a QB tomorrow night, leverage our draft equity, and still vie for a division title. I mean, the Packers have no idea how this Jordan Love thing's going to work out. The Bears got all that money and all those picks. Will they hit on it and do it right? And the Lions, as we just mentioned, I think should be favored to be atop the division. But we can still win 9 and 10 games and vie for a playoff spot. And we're going to games and we're right down to the wire and we're doing cool montages 9 to noon. We can do all that. Yeah, absolutely. So that I don't think is in danger or of being sacrificed in this vein. But what about 2024? What about 2025? Are we ready to make that kind of shift? And are Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell ready to take that kind of risk? And so what I want to happen in 23, I don't want it to be at 23. I want it to be at 8, 9, 10, or 11. I want that home run swing for them to just dagger somebody and say, that guy can take us somewhere. And then me, Kevin O'Connell, in his eyes, I'm going to be the guy that makes him. That I'm going to be the guy that creates the next Patrick Mahomes. And so making those decisions in a spot where we keep talking about stability or, man, if only we had 5 better, younger defensive players, you can't fix all those things regardless of what you do at 23. And so you can definitely make a massive investment in the future with a quarterback. By the way, wouldn't be bad to save a little coin since we're going to pay JJ. Think about this as a side note, Saucy.
And Darisaw.
Think about this. I wonder if it'll happen where like 10 years from now, they talk about wide receiver contracts the way that we talk about quarterback contracts now. Yeah. Because the way that the money has jumped up, and I'm not mad at any player getting paid. I mean, the team agrees to the contract. That's cool. And JJ is quickly becoming one of the best at his position in the NFL. So he's going to be owed a lot of money, and he's earned it statistically. So that's cool. But these are going to be the types of things where you got to manage that money. You got to pay Darisaw. You have to pay JJ. And then you're going to probably do, you gave up a 2nd-round pick for him. I suppose we should probably do an extension for Hawkinson too, right? And so we start doing the math on that. At some point, let's pray that Lewis seen, and that's all this is now. When you mentioned Kwesi and those guys talking about those selections, those 10 selections they had a year ago, they need those to come through. I mean, and that's all a projection. Kwesi can't help the fact that Seen broke his leg, but it's still the fact that he wasn't able to get on the field prior to that. Andrew Booth Jr. has been injured since he's about 7 years old. And then Ed Ingram needs to just get so much better in that spot. So all of those things are to be considered. We are not going to get, I just don't see, we're not going to get worse by taking the risk. We got Kirk for another year. And I'm just really excited about the prospect of Kevin O'Connell sitting down with Kwesi and saying, you know what, I know we got B-Flow over there, and B-Flow wants Brian Brzee out of Clemson. Good player, by the way.
Yeah, great player.
But you know what I want? I want us to take next year's first. I want to take pick 87. We can take the rest of our picks and try to get in late day 2 if we can. But I want to move on up. And I want a Will Levis. I want an Anthony Richardson, and I want to make him the best in the league. And that, for me, that would be amazing. So that's what I want at 23, is to not pick at 23.
Let me see if I'm overthinking this or underthinking this, and I want your opinion.
Okay.
Early in free agency, they signed a tight end named Josh Oliver, right?
Yeah.
Where did he come from?
The Ravens.
What kind of offense do the Ravens run?
They run an offense much different than ours. Caters to An athletic quarterback caters to a guy that kind of throws between the hashes, needs athletes around him to make it work after the catch, and they love to run the hell out of the ball, Saucy.
I mean,
is that it?
Josh Oliver isn't brought. I mean, you know what I mean, though. But like Josh Oliver obviously will work with Kirk Cousins. It'll work. But there's a reason they brought Josh Oliver in. There's a reason Charch, who we all respect, tweeted, "What are they doing signing a luxury second tight end when they need 15 other things?" There's a reason they brought Josh Oliver in. The offense that he ran in with the Ravens. I thought of it yesterday, and it's something on the power trip that I brought up where I would be yelled at by Corey probably, but like it's probably way too deep of thinking and trying to get Anthony Richardson, trying to manifest him on this team so badly. But like, it's just something to think about, right? Like maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. Josh Oliver is on this team for a reason, right?
Well, I think he's on the field. He's on the team for a reason. I don't think that it has anything to do with Anthony Richardson. I think, and part of it, so when Kevin O'Connell becomes the head coach, it's very easy, and it played out in a lot of ways. It's not, I don't think it's cliched. I think it's real that we were going to be Rams Midwest, right? So we're going to be 3 wide, 11 personnel, the whole bit. And we did that. I thought it was to our own detriment at times, the way that the offense was run. And we can dig in, and we're never probably going to get all the right answers. Is it Kirk? Is it the coach? Is it a healthy combination of both? Everyone getting used to each other, all of those things. But I think the head coach, if he's honest with himself, he would look back and he'd say, man, we needed to run the ball more. Man, we needed to run the ball more effectively. Man, we needed to protect Kirk. And the offense was super disjointed. It was boom or bust at times. And so we can simultaneously love JJ and a borderline MVP season that Justin Jefferson had, and simultaneously go, man, we were like top 5 in negative plays on offense last year. Yeah. Look at all these 3 and outs. We still had, even with the new coach and the new offense, we still had all those lulls and all those periods of absolute offensive impotence. And so I think he into year 2 wants to get better. I think we're going to run the ball more. I think adding Oliver provides a physical presence at the line and maybe some versatile ways that they can use him. But you know, I'll play the game with you, Saucy. If they are going to alter the way they do it for the sake of a young QB, then a guy like Oliver certainly fits into the mix, as he was very comfortable and confident playing next to a Lamar Jackson. So, but if we get Anthony Richardson, Saucy, I need Kevin O'Connell to help Anthony Richardson be a better passer. Yeah. Because this running QB thing is awesome. And I don't want to call I'm not a fanboy. I mean, I'm an adult. I'm 38 years old. Mostly an adult.
You're kind of a fanboy, though.
I love Lamar Jackson. He is so fun to watch. But at some point, and I think we're already starting to get there, which sucks for him, is at some point those hits are going to take a toll. And you can say similar things about Josh Allen. He's taken a lot of helmets and shoulders to the thighs over the last couple of years. The turnovers, just unacceptable levels of stupid at times from that Bills offense. And that's the fumbles and the picks in the red zone. That's on Josh Allen. But back to Lamar. At some point, you just have to be a passer. At some point, you're not going to be able to run for $120 and win games when you can only throw it 175 yards, 1 touchdown and a pick. That's not good enough. At some point, he's going to have to regularly flirt with 300 yards. He's going to have to consistently be 65% passing accuracy or better. And that's how he's going to win games later in his career. So Anthony Richardson and all those gaudy statistics, he's going to, early in his career, he might be 1,000-yard rusher. He might be that guy. That's very possible. I mean, freaking Daniel Jones ran for like 700 yards, and Anthony Richardson's on another planet from athleticism. So at some point, he's got to be a passer. So if we take Anthony Richardson, whether we got Josh Oliver or not, fine that he's here. I still, again, like you, I'm trying to grasp what this thing's going to look like. Anthony Richardson, the A topic for him has to be hitting those throws on the boundaries, accuracy, hitting guys on the run. Such a basic concept to us as rubes that sit in chairs and talk about it, but it's a big deal where JJ can catch one on the run versus having to stop and turn half the time, and you take 20 yards off the top every single time that happens. So I love Anthony Richardson. If the team takes him, that has to be the A topic for him, is his development as a passer, because the tricks are there, but is the consistency there, which ultimately leads to stability, a longer career, and maybe Viking success along with it. So that's what I got.
We got about 10 minutes left, Nordo, in this, and we've talked a lot about the quarterback position.
Yeah,
I'm going to give you a couple of names at pick 23 if they stay that I would love, and I want your quick thoughts. Okay.
Yeah.
The wide receiver Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State, I think, would be a stud at 23. There's a couple mock drafts that he gets all the way down to 23. I think you got to avoid the Packers at 13. The Patriots need a wide receiver. The Commanders need everything. Detroit maybe goes wide receiver, but Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State could be an absolute monster on this team.
I like that name a lot. I don't know if he would be there, but I would accept him if that's who they're going to go. How good would he? He's right on that cusp, and we talked about this. We need another taller wide receiver. KJ, more of a slot guy. Think about our wide receiver core right now. Jalen Naylor, Jalen Rager. These are smaller guys. These are guys that are doing the fake jet sweeps. But are they true combatants on the boundary, kind of the yin to JJ's yang, and somebody that's going to command respect, that can open up things for JJ? Hawkinson, I think, went a long way to do some of that, but another guy on the outside with some size I would really like. And 6'1" maybe would be at the lowest, but Smith and Jigba, I just don't think he's going to be there because he's such a badass. He's so good. And, we made the mistake in 2016 of taking Laquan instead of Michael Thomas. But this is a freaking factory. Isn't Marvin Harrison Jr. coming out next year too?
Yeah, Marvin Harrison, he'll be a top 5 pick.
Yeah, and Olave and Garrett Wilson a year ago, both by all accounts, Olave kind of a deep threat. Garrett Wilson's more of a do-it-all. Both had really successful rookie seasons. Smith and Jigba would be yet another plug and play that was catching balls from one of the best QBs in college football, but making them count. He had like this 300-yard game once. That's sweet. I just don't think he's going to be there. Packers could go tackle if they're done with Bakhtiari. Bakhtiari's good, but he's old. And the Commanders, I don't know if you saw this. The Commanders aren't picking up the 5th-year option on Chase Young because he's been hurt so much. So maybe they don't know. Maybe they know something about that injury or just what the prospects look like where they're potentially ready to move on. So maybe the Commanders would go defense. If that's the case, then a Smith and Jigba might just dance his way to Minnesota. And when we're doing the Friday feast in Egan, and maybe if a Smith and Jigba rolls in there, that's gonna lift the roof, I think.
Yeah, my wild card, Nordo, at pick 23. Because obviously they signed Alexander Madison to that small deal, right? We don't know what's happening with Delvin. Delvin's Instagramming pictures with the Vikings logo like covered. They're probably going to move on for him. We heard reports from Jeremy Fowler that they're probably going to cut him if they can't find a trade partner, and a trade will probably happen after June 1st, right? Yeah,
he's not even in town right now.
Correct. And I don't think he'll be in. I don't know if we'll see him. If the only way I think we'll see him is training camp, if he's even on the team, right? Bijan Robinson is my guy. Nobody takes the bit about, like, a lot of teams don't take running backs high. Bijan Robinson at pick 23 is a pick where you'd probably go, man, they got a lot of other needs. That guy is an absolute stud. He was I think he was Texas's leading receiver last year. He's a 3-down back. He'd be a great player. And I think if Bijan Robinson is at pick 23, I think he'd be a little bit tough to pass up.
It would be tough to pass up. That's kind of the pinnacle of best player available, right? Absent of, just avoiding all scheme related conversations, just here's what we do. Again, we just finished a conversation in which we're thinking about the Vikings throwing like 68% of the time a year ago. That number's got to change. I forget what it actually ended at, 60 something. And then you're going to, and you mentioned you bring in a Josh Oliver, you want to beef things up, and you go right back to the well with that guy. He's a game changer. He's super cool. I think, again, given the nature of this type of offense and what they do truly want to accomplish, you're going to pay JJ a boatload, and he's going to be the focal point of this team for the next, 5-6 years and beyond. I don't think they would take Bijan. But I'm not going to, if we're just playing Madden on freaking rookie mode and we just want to run up 100 points, Bijan's the guy. He's just such an unbelievable player. The flexibility, the shiftiness. He is, cliched, the human highlight reel. I don't think that the Vikings would take him. If he was available at 23, it would depend on what else was in the mix. Am I trying to trade back? We talked about him on the show earlier today. Jahmyr Gibbs, the Alabama Cats, actually also really good, and he projects more in that second round. He's being, and then comparisons are usually somewhat farcical in a lot of regard. But if he's being compared to Alvin Kamara, well, if Jahmyr Gibbs can be Alvin Kamara and I can get him in the second round, and I'm a team that likes to pass the way that I do, like KOC, I'd prefer to do that, to be honest with you. But I understand this one tugs at the strings a little bit.
Last one, and then as we wrap up here, I want you to give the listeners what you think will actually happen tomorrow. My last guy who I would be pumped with if it isn't quarterback would be Joey Porter Jr., the corner from Penn State. I think he would be great. I don't know how he gets past Pittsburgh with all the ties there and all that, but if he finds his way to the Vikings at pick 23, I think that would be sweet. He's a very big corner. He, as it says down there, he gave up only 143 yards last season in a very pass-happy Big Ten. I think he'd be a very good cornerback to have.
If the Vikings took him, I'd be elated. I keep joking that there have been 20 corners mocked to the Vikings or projected as first-round picks. It's Cam Smith, it's Keely Ringo, it's Emmanuel Forbes, it's Porter, as you mentioned, Deonte Banks, Devin Witherspoon's going to go. Probably he might be the first one off the board, the kid from Illinois. Joey Porter is awesome. And he is just an abs. He's out there trying to have heavyweight fights with people. And so, kind of with the idea that, as a coach, you're going to constantly be trying to reel him in versus trying to get more out of him. The talent is immense. The pedigree's sweet with his dad. And you're right, there are ties, and that is a team, Pittsburgh. They get rid of, I think it was Mike Hilton or Cam Sutton? I forget who it was. They lost a corner. They added Patrick Peterson, but Peterson's near the end. That'd be a really good spot for him family-wise. But no, I'd love it. I'd love it if we got Joey Porter, certainly. I'd love it if we got there are 15 guys that I would love it if we got at 23, essentially.
I said one more, but I have two more quick questions for you.
Okay.
What would your reaction be if this team at pick 23 took Hendon Hooker, the quarterback from Tennessee?
I'd root for him, and I'd love him, and I'd be happy that we got a QB. I don't know. Just from some of the people that I've talked to, it isn't completely trivial that he is older. It isn't completely trivial that he's coming off the ACL. And part of the year, potentially, that you believe that you're getting with Kirk under center, you are maybe conceding a bit of that. Even if he's coming back healthy, I don't have his timeline directly in front of my face right now. And, Kirk doesn't miss games. It's not like you would need him to play, but getting him healthy and getting him in the mix. I love some of his throws, and, the touchdown to interception ratio is really impressive. I'd like him on the team. Again, if they do that at 23, I wish there was a way, and you never get to know for sure, that it wasn't just them sitting at 23 because they couldn't trade up and get the guy they really wanted. So they just took a guy that cost them the least in draft equity simply because he was available. I do believe that Hendon, if unless somebody makes a move to trade up and gets tricky with it, I think Hendon naturally fits early on day 2. And so that would lead me down the road of when you ask me what I think will happen with pick 23 tomorrow.
Yeah, what do you think happens at pick 23 tomorrow?
Excuse me, sorry. Sorry about my cough. Sorry about my internet. Sorry about my nose. Sorry about everything.
It looks like you're on Blair Witch.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. It's a tough life that I live, for sure.
Yeah,
I think what's going to happen is I think the Vikings are going to try to move up, and I think they're going to fail. And I do believe that they will bail on pick 23, and they will bail either to the very bitter end of round 1 like they did a year ago, or they will not select somebody on night 1. And so we'll be wondering and ready for Friday. We're all pumped for the Wild game. We all used code DRAFT at SavoyPizza.com because we got our large pizza and our free appetizers on Friday. No work tomorrow, feeling good about ourselves. And you're going to turn on the draft, and the Vikings are going to have 2 or 3 picks that they didn't have before within that top 100 realm that Kwesi talked about is so important. Not just getting bodies out of the draft, but getting talented ones. And I do believe that that is what happens in the draft. I don't want to be a buzzkill. I want them to move up. I think they're going to try to move up. But I don't know if they have the necessary capital to do so. Now, if Dalvin, drafts have gotten so weird in recent years. We're seeing way more trades in season with players. We're seeing way more draft, within the confines of the draft weekend. So really from now through Saturday, we're seeing more players as part of the deal. It's not just the old, pick Jimmy Johnson grading system and move in, move out. Now you're seeing players and some guys moving. So the way that they get capital, we were talking about Houston earlier. They need pass rush. They need Zadarius Smith. Maybe that saves us a couple of picks. It also would save us $12 million in salary. Those sorts of things. So
Daniil is the other one.
Man, I don't want to lose Daniil. I need to this Daniil thing. He can't be running out in coverage. What on earth were we doing a year ago with Daniil? His job is to assault the quarterback. That is his freaking job. He's out there running. He's defending tight ends, and he's chipping wide receivers. Why is this happening? How ridiculous. And so that is the faith that you would have in Brian Flores, that he puts a stop to that, and Daniil gets back to that 14, 15, 16 sacks, bunch of quarterback hits, and it just looks normal again. But Daniil, yes, that would pay me a little bit, but last year a deal, right? He's one of like half the team has deferred, dead money in years future, but I think it's his last year. So he's a guy. Dalvin's a guy. We have the necessary trade assets in that. In from that standpoint, do we have enough draft picks? We don't have a second round pick. Would a team be annoyed by that? Would they want that? And so I believe that the team's going to try to trade up. And maybe this is the fatalist in me. Logically, I just don't see how we have enough to move up. And so I think we bail. And I think we try to get as many in the top 100 as we can.
Yeah.
What do you think?
What we started this with, I think they find a way.
You think they take the home run swing and they hit it?
I think they take the swing. I
hope I'm wrong, and I hope you're right, brother. That'd be sweet.
I think the way that they've laid this whole offseason out, and I'm sticking with Lieber's bit. Stick to your bit. Stick to your guns. Of course, they can go back to the quarterback and go, hey, how about a 3-year, $42 million deal, right? Or whatever it is, $42 million a year, whatever it is, right? They can go back to that. But you run the risk of Kirk Cousins saying, no, I'm going to play out this year, and if I can't find anything, you're going to franchise me and pay me about $50 million in 2024. I think that's what he would make if he was franchised next year, and it's the last.
Well, hold on. Can they even franchise tag Kirk?
I think he can be tagged one more time. You can be
okay. I didn't think he could. I don't know. So all right. Well, whatever. I get what you're saying.
So then what do? You pay him $54 million because you can't find anybody. This is the perfect year to find somebody. You always have draft equity because you always have next year's draft equity. You just do. As you said, Nordo, this team is too good on paper to finish 5-12. You know what I mean? They just are.
Oh, yeah.
They're too good
We're not.
They're not.
We're not going to be a top 5 pick. It's just not going to happen.
Correct. So you do it this year. I don't think the teams next year at pick 1 and 2 are going to take any amount to get to not take Caleb Williams or the quarterback from UNC next year. So you're stuck with that, right? I just think the way they've laid it out, they keep going with the equity they had from, or the quantity, they had from the 2022 draft, and how all these guys can come back and probably play at a good level and maybe win some more games, make some changes with Brian Flores, change the defense around. I think they make the swing. I think Kwesi and KOC want their guy, and they want to handpick their own guy. That, as you've said, Nordo, if they're going to get one shot at this, they want their own guy.
I'm in. No, we're in agreement on the philosophy of it. At this stage, I'm lacking the optimism that you have, but it's exciting, man. Like, I can't wait for tomorrow, and I hope it works. I hope that we're all kind of, like you said, you were trying to manifest the idea of Anthony Richardson with this crazy idea that's why they picked up Josh Oliver. But that's all good. You're thinking about it, Saucy. You're thinking about it because you're excited about it. I just, in some ways, I and many, and I assume yourself as well, we are hoping that they love one of these guys the way that we love them. Because right now for us, it's an idea. It's an idea of moving beyond Kirk. And we're going to look at Will Levis and those 23 turnovers over the last couple of years. And we're going to look at that with a rosier projection because of what he could potentially be. Similarly with Anthony Richardson, how bad was he from an accuracy standpoint at Florida? Was it the system? They're always asking him to throw deep. There are all sorts of ways that we can validate these guys. I just hope that they love one of these guys as much as we do, and they put that massive stamp on him and they say, that's our guy, and we're going to pay whatever we want or whatever we can or need to acquire him. And let's do it. That's sweet. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they don't bail. I hope they move on up and handle business. That's awesome.
Tomorrow, 7:30 to 9, Power Trip mock draft. You, Cindy, me, Lieber, your guy PA, Bossberg, Charch will be there. We'll go to pick 23. Max is picking as well. We'll have all of us pick 3 different times. Then we'll all pick for the Vikings. Power Trip annual mock draft tomorrow. What do you guys got tomorrow, 9 to noon?
We got Jordan Reed from ESPN. We have Lieber in studio at 10. We have Alec Lewis of The Athletic at 11. And so we're basically all draft the entire day. Charch is actually going to hang around and hang out with us the first segment tomorrow. And so it'll be a preview of Thursday and then just kind of also laying out the Friday feast, because the feast will be on site at a spot in Eagan, B-Dubs in Eagan on Friday. So that's going to be the plan for maybe a celebration of a QB. How about Will Levis or Anthony Richardson just rolling in there wearing a mink coat like I am him? That's going to be pretty sweet. That'd be sweet if it happens. So what'd you do while I was trying to figure out my internet?
I just talked about how they need to move up for a quarterback. Then we got to take a swing. We need a superstar, that whole thing. I rambled a little, but Zacho helped me out. And it was, I'm just going to stick with it. If it doesn't happen, like you said, there's 4 or 5 guys at pick 23 I'd be pumped for. But we all know what's going to happen. They're going to move back from pick 23 and go to like pick 35.
Oh, absolutely they will. No, it's and that would be, but that is, again, it sucks. That is the more prudent approach, right?
Correct. Yeah.
That is the most prudent approach, to either absolutely hit stone cold lock home runs on every single one of those guys who become instant and or really early contributors to the defense. They make the team better, and that gets us over whatever this perceived hump is. Or we continue to win 9 or 10 games, flirt with the playoffs, make the playoffs every couple of years, and lose in the wild card round. That's the outcomes from that. The big swing,
right?
Big swing, big expectations, big risk, but potentially a big reward.
Who brings us this, Nordo?
Hey, big thanks for Red Savoy, savoypizza.com. And thank God that they have a location in Chanhassen, but that's where I go. But they have locations all over, savoypizza.com. And they're turning their appy hour into a draftathon, because you get a large pizza and you use that code DRAFT at checkout, and you get the free appetizer along with it. Red Savoy Pizza, I mean, they've been a staple in this town, in this area for such a long time. The pizza absolutely kicks ass, and they're just tremendous partners to work with. So SavoyPizza.com is the spot to go. That code DRAFT, that'll get you paid now through the draft. So enjoy that. Enjoy that pizza.
You're the best, man. Thank you very much. Zacho, thanks to Nick for putting all the graphics and stuff together. We'll see you tomorrow, man. 7:30 Power Trip Mock Draft. Zach and Nick are going to kill it on all that. It's going to be great.
No, that's sweet. Really excited for it. Thanks for putting once again, you put all that work together. You know, people think that I joke during the Saturday show about the voluminous notes and just all the prep work that you put in the Saturday show, but you can see that on the screen right now. I mean, the way you laid this thing out, the hours it took you to construct the lineup, I'm so impressed, man. I appreciate you putting in that sweat equity.
Who says I don't do anything?
Corey and hockey mostly.
Yeah.
And Abbott.
Swedberg, yeah.
And Swedberg.
The check.
Yeah, Greg Alexander actually had a comment on it during the quarterly meeting.
I think after I left, the whole meeting was about how little I do, yeah.
By the way, that mustache rips. What a stud.
Thank you. I look like who's the guy that plays for the Padres that doesn't wear batting gloves that used to play for the Cardinals? Is it Matt Chapman?
Oh, yeah. You kind of got a little bit with that angle. There's a little bit of Piazza to you.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I like the mustache, man. I might keep it.
I think you should keep it. Oh, that's one hell of a sweeper. There's no doubt about that.
Your dad.
All right.
It.
Well, at Meatsauce1, at Mad Producer 1, at KFAN 1003, and at Savoy Pizza. Just go to SavoyPizza.com. And that brings the KFAN draft.
Cave, by the way.
What's that?
Thanks for joining us from a cave.
Look, I don't know what the hell's going on.
I
got a free. I mean, it feels like I'm making a mortgage payment for this internet. We got 50 devices streaming, no problem. I try to do 1 hour of a draft show, and suddenly it's apocalyptic over here. So now I'm here. I'm in the dark. You know, apparently we don't pay the light bill around here. I mean, it's just tough times.
Right. Yeah. All right. You're the best, brother. I'll see you tomorrow.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Echo. Bye.